this is opening up the question to you guys. Have you ever realized that you may have been the villain in somebody else's story? We often grow up thinking we know the people around us, that we share the same house, so we must have shared the same childhood. But we forget that two people can be given the same ingredients and still bake two very different lives. This episode isn't about blaming. It's about wondering, what if I was the villain in someone else's story and I didn't even know it? Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of We Need to Talk in the Wild. As you can tell by the shaking of the camera, we're driving. Not very fast because we're in traffic, but we're driving. I'm going to give you guys some video inception because today's episode is about why I am the way I am, essentially, which aligns with another episode that we have recorded already, but y'all will be seeing after this episode. This is slightly different because instead of looking at if we're traumatized because we've been bullied or if we're actually introverted, today we're going to be looking at, am I the villain in somebody else's story? Have I been raised in a certain way that made me a certain way, and now I could potentially be the villain in somebody's story just because of the way that I've been raised? We're going to tie this all back to nature versus nurture. That's the basis of this episode for those psychology buffs. It's all going to be wrapped up in one. So let's talk a little bit about nature versus nurture. Like, let's break it down in a way that we're kind of just talking about everyday life and what it's like to have a parent. Everyone has those, but more so having a parent with when you have siblings. Let me put it that way. So, your mom gave birth to your sibling or you first, whichever order it is for you guys. And that mom for them versus the mom for you is completely different. And I know that we've touched on this here and there while we've been filming episodes about how it's just different. That you will never grow up with the same parent that your sibling had. And that's for many different reasons. But let's talk about a couple. So personality is one, life experience is another, and just changes in parenting style. So let's start with personality. Your personality is completely different from your sibling's personality. That is literally just the nature of it all, your genetic makeup, how you experience the world, how you have interacted, how you have learned, how your brain chemistry works, which I started to talk a little bit about nurture there. Yeah. But your personality is a bunch of traits that you have that are just sort of innate inside of you. You come out, you feel certain ways about certain things. I like chocolate just because the taste on my tongue, etc. But your sibling might not like it just because their taste buds said no, absolutely not. And that's not a right or wrong thing. You just have different personalities, different things about you, how you laugh, how you talk, how you judge, perceive. Are you more of an intuitive person? Are you more of a, I don't even know. What would you say? Personality traits. Are you a helper? Are you a are you a helper? Are you a leader? Are you seen as the mean one? Are you seen as the nice one? Quiet, loud?
Violent, cruel, sociopathic.
Sure. Let's go with those. So those are your personality traits that are, well, another video inception thing. We talked a little bit about it in a video that you'll see later. Also, if you want to know more, just Google it. Or as Andre would say, Yahoo it. Firefox it.
Me.
You have free will. Type in personality test. Or go to, a psychologist. Figure it out. You guys can do it. I believe in you. So, personality. Your personality is completely different from your sibling. And therefore, your parent has to. And parent is being used in a broad term. It doesn't have to be your biological, someone pushed you out. Whoever was your guardian is going to treat you and your sibling, whether that's even your biological sibling, could be a cousin, could be a friend, could be no one that's biologically related to you, but you all grew up together and you consider that person a sibling. So take that with a grain of salt. But for the purpose of this video, we're using parent and sibling. Y'all have grown up in this situation and your personalities are completely different. And therefore, your parent has to adapt to your personality and your sibling's personality differently. So if I'm a quiet child, obviously they're not going to need to punish me in the same way or give me praise in the same way that they would my sibling who might be rambunctious. So all of those factors play a role in why my parent might be treating me differently than my sibling. Life experiences. Obviously, unless you're twins, and even in that case, there still will be differences, but this one might not play a huge factor, what I'm about to say. If you're not twins and your parent gave birth to you 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 6 years apart from your sibling, they're in a different life stage than when they first had you. They had them, depending on whoever came first. And therefore, they'll be a different person. Quite literally, be completely different. They would have learned how to better parent. They would have learned how to better handle situations. Well, hopefully. Or they would have gone even worse. That's also, an option.
More violent, more cruel.
Yeah. And the third thing is parenting styles. So, with different parenting styles, as you learn and experience different things, it's teaching you how to better deal, realizing maybe this isn't the best way to handle this situation, which comes with the life experiences. It's kind of one and the same, but it's still slightly different because there are specific types of parenting styles, which I should put up on the screen right now, and figuring out which best fits you. So, your first child, you wouldn't fully know what best fits you. You might go in thinking that you do, and then with their personality, with your life experiences and what's going on in your life right now, then you would be more akin to one parenting style than another. And so then if you like flip it and you have a different type of child, a different personality, it will still give you that, oh, I have to switch it up for this child so that they can best thrive and function. But what does that mean for children who maybe they should have had a different style? Maybe they should have had one style versus the next, but their parents chose one and now they act more violently because they object to how they were treated. They saw their sibling being treated one way and now they're upset. When you're raised in survival mode, teasing becomes normal. Shouting is love. Silence is punishment. And for some, being tough is the only way to survive. But someone else in that same home might have felt unsafe, unseen, or hurt. So when I look back now and I have to ask, was I trying to survive or was I also hurting someone else in the process? So then that brings us to a disparity of, you can remember an instance, a story, a scene completely differently from how your sibling would remember it. So a little teasing to one sibling might be completely traumatic to another sibling. And that, although people, each person might feel like if they're telling the truth, their truths are different. So the first person's truth would be, I didn't bully you, I didn't traumatize you, I may have said X or I may have said Y, but you're too sensitive or you took it the incorrect way. And for you, that might be a life altering, life shaping event where that is why your villain origin story started, where it began. And it might cause you to then be violent to other people. Or from that first perspective, you might think that you're not bullying somebody. You might think that you're innocently just doing something based on how you've grown up, based on the interactions that you've had with other people. And you might come from a different generation where it isn't the same, where to you, bullying isn't telling somebody that they're fat, because it might just be you saying the truth of the matter, telling some person exactly like it is. And for them, you calling them fat every day or every week, every time they see you, it might be the most hurtful thing, where now they give themselves an ED and they're just hurt, and that's all they remember from your interactions, even if you've had happy moments with them, even if you've had sad moments with them. So that nurturing society of fostering that feeling of unhealthy. Because that even happens in the Caribbean, where the first thing they say to you is, you got fat, or you lost a lot of weight, you're looking sick. And you might think, right, that's what I have to prepare myself for every single time I see you, even though that's not necessary. And to them, they're just saying a lighthearted message. They're showing you that they care. They're just concerned about your health because you may or may not have increased or decreased weight since last time they saw you. Mind you, they haven't seen you since you were like 12. And you're just like, really? But for them, it doesn't seem like bullying. For them, it doesn't seem like a screwed up thing. But to you, it's the most hurtful thing that somebody could say to you every single time that you see them or every time that they see you. And this nurturing of, it might not be as bad as you think it is from that person's perspective, to try to diminish your feelings a little bit, and then not causing you to be aggressive and turn out to be exactly how they are, because you want everyone to feel the pain that you felt, or you think that that's the correct way to do it. And then you come upon other people who also thought like the younger version of you. So the version of you that thought that was bullying and felt sensitive to it, they might have those same ideals. And you go around those people because that's who you're naturally drawn to. And you start doing what the other person was doing to you because you thought that that was the way that you function, the way that you cope, the way that you should talk to people. Because they told you you're overreacting, you're being too sensitive, you're being too emotional, and therefore you needed to do better in how you react to things, and the anger that was coming out was unnecessary, or you were being so sensitive that you really should do better. So it's like looking at it and then saying to yourself, I didn't think that this was wrong because of how I've been raised, because of how people have treated me, because of how people have treated me. They've pushed me to this point where now I think it's normal, and now I'm the villain in somebody else's story because I've adapted the way that I've been forced to adapt. So you are now thinking, no, that person is just being overly sensitive, and they're telling you, no, you're incorrect and you should do better. And it makes you even more angry sometimes, because it feels like if you were silenced in the beginning, it feels like if you're silenced now. And there's this confusion of, do I need to take accountability for this? The answer is yes, you always need to take accountability. And you're always responsible for your actions. And it's a sad thing, but sometimes it can feel victimizing that you're now the villain in somebody else's story because you had issues or trouble trying to figure out how to adjust in life. Sometimes the version of me that I've worked so hard to outgrow still lives in someone else's memory. They don't see the healing, they don't see the apologies, they just remember what I did or didn't do. And maybe they have a right to. We want to believe we're always the hero, but truth means asking hard questions. What if I wasn't? And if we think about it, we could be the villain in somebody else's story just because of the fact that we were traumatized, and we still have to be accountable, and we still have to take responsibility for the fact that even though we're traumatized, we can still cause trauma to other people. And that is something that has clearly happened to a lot of people. Like, they have been traumatized, and there's a perpetual cycle, perpetuation of trauma over and over, where you've been harmed, so you hurt people, and in the accountability, it's acknowledging that you were traumatized, or that you were taught in a wrong way, so traumatized, and learning through the trauma, and still saying, you know what, I might be the villain in somebody else's story, and even though I didn't intend on being the villain in somebody else's story, it's okay. We're all learning. We're all not perfect. We're all trying our best. And it is possible to be the villain and not be a bad person, to be the villain and, struggle with holding yourself accountable and responsible because you were nurtured into a certain way that may not have been your nature, or it was your nature and now you have to be nurtured into not behaving that way. Hopefully, I'm making sense to you guys. But I just wanted to open up the discussion of this because it can be so taboo and one sided that when people are told that they're the villain in somebody else's story, they want to get defensive and say, I'm not the villain in anybody's story. I haven't done anything to people, without taking into account that people's feelings matter, and it is still possible for you to, mess up somebody else's life, even if it was by accident. So this is opening up the question to you guys. Have you ever realized that you may have been the villain in somebody else's story? And then I want to pose another question of, is forgiveness for you, the person that was hurt? Is forgiveness for the person that caused the hurt? Who is forgiveness for in your thoughts? And we also have to be mindful that truth isn't just my truth. There's my truth, your truth, and objective truth. And if I'm telling a story, the truth is in the narrator of the story, and my villain origin story. Let's look at Maleficent. When you look at the movie Maleficent, you see her as a villain in Sleeping Beauty, but when you look at her movie, you realize why her villain origin story happened, and you kind of root for her at the end because it's like, y'all mess with that woman, really and truly. So yeah, have an open discussion in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe. Bye, guys. Leader, are you a... Oh, her smells disgusting.
Country air.
I'm not even going to tell you guys where, but it's just smelling like sulfur. So, this is awkward. This is awkward. This is so awkward. Right. So, I say so much that if it was a drinking game with how many times I say so, people would be wasted by the end of these videos. I'm not putting that in. That's not a good thing to put in. But we will play that game eventually. Every time I say so while we're editing. What was I saying? Life experiences. Life experiences. What was the third thing I had said? That's great. Thank you so much for being the management of this